Hello, everybody. Today, I will get the honor to talk to you about the Aboriginal Australian culture. Imagine where we live now in the United States. It's been around for maybe 250 years, since 1776, if I'm not mistaken. Now, imagine living in a culture that's been around for over 60,000 years. It's really kind of hard to imagine it, but if you can, just imagine just how huge 60,000 years is. It's older than the pyramids. It's older than the Great Wall of China and pretty much every civilization you can think of. Aboriginal Australians are one of the longest surviving cultures in human history. And their way of life teaches us some pretty incredible things about communication, resilience, and our connection to the land. Today, I want to take you on a journey through their huge history. And I'm going to try to do it in a short period of time, but I'm going to try to do my best to cover as much as I can. What's happening with the Aboriginal people and their culture today, and as well as the lessons that we can take from their unique way of communicating. So let's not waste any time and let's dive right in. Let's start with some history. Aboriginal Australians have lived in Australia for over 60,000 years. They didn't just survive, they thrived, developing a deep spiritual connection to the land through something they called the dreaming or dream time. It's kind of like their blueprint for life. It explains how the world was created, the laws of nature, and even social behavior. Instead of writing things down, they passed their knowledge through storytelling, songs, and art. They lived in tight knit, clan based societies that were kinship ties, dictated relationships, and responsibilities. It is important to understand that for Aboriginal people, land isn't just a lot that you build your house on, it's identity, ancestry, and living being. This connection is something that Western cultures never really grasped, and it led to a lot of conflict, especially when colonization started. Unfortunately, British colonized in the late 18th century brought devastating changes to the Aboriginal people. Land was taken, communities were displaced, and their traditional ways of life were heavily disrupted. But despite everything, Aboriginal culture has persisted. There's a lot uh, uh, of same positions with the United States and the natives that lived here, if you can kind of see the correlation there. That last part, I'd like to go ahead and cite the Australian Institute of Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islander Studies, the AIATSIS, The Dreaming and Other Essays by W.E.H. Stanner. So let's fast forward a little bit to today. Aboriginal Australians only make up 3.2% of the country's population. And while they've fought hard to reclaim their rights, there are still major challenges. And the biggest issue in my mind is, of course, land rights. There have been progress like the Mabo case in 1992, which led to the Native Title Act, finally recognizing that Aboriginal people did own land before colonization. But disputes over land and resources are still happening to this day. The second biggest challenge in my mind, which is honestly just as important, if not more important than the land, is the challenge of language loss. Before colonization, there was over 250 Aboriginal languages fluently spoken. Today, there's less than 20 that are used. Imagine if suddenly no one spoke your first native language anymore and it was just lost. It would be a devastating thing for a culture to have to go through. That's why language revitalization efforts are so important and they're happening today. But despite these struggles, Aboriginal culture is still alive and evolving. NAIDOC Week is a national celebration of Indigenous history, and artists like Baker Boy and Yuthof Yindi are bringing Aboriginal stories and into mainstream music. More Aboriginal voices are making waves in politics, activism, and media, which is awesome to see today. That's cited from the AIATSIS website, Dark Emu by Bruce Pascoe, ABC News Australia. So, what can we learn from Aboriginal communication styles? A ton. That's how we can learn a lot. First, let's talk about the storytelling. In Aboriginal culture, storytelling isn't just entertainment. It's not talking about scary stories by the fire, right? Aboriginal cultural storytelling, it isn't entertainment, it's how history, laws, and moral lessons are passed down from generation to generation. It's way more engaging than just reading facts from a textbook or a history book. It's engaging and learning through storytelling. Another big thing is the power of silence, which I am not good at all. In Western culture, silence is a conversation, and a conversation can feel awkward. I'm always trying to fill in those awkward silences and gaps because I don't have the power to possess being quiet and listening. But in Aboriginal communities, silence is a sign of respect and deep thinking. It's about taking the time to really process what's really being said instead of rushing to respond. Then there's the Diri, which translates to deep listening. It's about truly paying attention, reflecting, and understanding rather than just waiting for your turn to talk. Imagine how much better our conversations would be if we all practiced that and didn't just say the first thing that came to our mind. Finally, decision making in Aboriginal communities is all about consensus. Instead of rushing decisions, they take their time to make sure everyone is heard. We could definitely use more of that in our work spaces today. We'll cite Sand Talk, How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World by Tyson Yunka Porta. Journalism of Indigenous Studies, TED Talk on Dadari, the deep listening of Aboriginal culture. So, to wrap it up, Aboriginal Australian culture is one of the oldest and most resilient in the world. We talked about their history, the challenges they face today, and what we can learn from their unique communication styles. If we take a page from their book, whether it's valuing storytelling, embracing silence, or practicing deep listening, or making more inclusive decisions, we can become better communication communicators in our own lives. So here's the challenge for you. Next time you're in a conversation, try out the Darty. Thank you for listening.